Ah, power. It's intoxicating, isn't it? Like a fine wine. Rich, heady, and impossible to resist. But for the emperors of Rome, power was more like poison. Slow, inevitable, and utterly lethal. Now here's the thing. People like to romanticize these emperors, casting them as either great heroes or villains. But what if, stay with me here, their deaths were necessary? What if Rome needed to rid itself of a Caligula or a Nero for its survival? Harsh? Maybe. But tonight, we're not here to mourn emperors. We're here to ask the hard question, was the price of their power worth it? March 15th, 44 BCE, the Ides of March, Julius Caesar walked into the Senate, not knowing it would be his final day. 23 stab wounds later, the man who redefined Roman politics lay dead. Betrayed by the very Senate he sought to control. Now here's where things get tricky. Caesar is often painted as a martyr, a visionary cut down by jealous rivals. But let's not forget, he dismantled the Republic and made himself dictator for life. Would Rome have survived if he'd lived? Or was his death the painful reset Rome needed to prevent a one-man rule? History calls it betrayal. I call it maybe necessary. The Praetorian Guard, Rome's secret service, or so they claimed. Sworn to protect the emperor, they quickly learned that power was more lucrative than loyalty. By assassinating emperors, they didn't just betray their oath, they became the puppet masters of Rome. But here's a controversial thought. Were they entirely wrong? Caligula, for instance, the man was a walking catastrophe, a god complex wrapped in cruelty and chaos. When the Praetorian Guard killed him, did they just save Rome from its own destruction? Sure, it was treachery. But let's be honest, maybe it was needed treachery. Over the centuries, the Guard became infamous for their betrayals, even auctioning off the throne to the highest bidder. Corruption? Absolutely. But in a strange way, their actions shaped the course of Roman history. They decided who ruled, and sometimes their choices might have been the lesser of two evils. Makes you wonder, is loyalty really more important than survival? Ah, Nero. The name alone conjures images of fire, decadence, and madness. He's the emperor who allegedly fiddled while Rome burned, though history might have exaggerated that detail. Still, Nero's reign was a nightmare of executions, paranoia, and unchecked ego. By the end, the Senate had declared him a public enemy, and he took his own life. Now I'll say it, good riddance. Nero's death wasn't just the end of a tyrant, it was the beginning of a new chapter for Rome. Sure, it's cruel to say the world's better off without someone, but in Nero's case, I don't feel a shred of remorse. Sometimes the fall of one man paves the way for the survival of many. Rome didn't mourn Nero, and neither should we. So, what's the takeaway here? Rome's emperors lived and died by the sword or the dagger, and yes, their deaths were often brutal, shocking, and tragic. But were they also inevitable, maybe even necessary? Power corrupts, and in Rome, corruption often met its match in ambition. Betrayal wasn't the exception, it was the system, and perhaps, just perhaps, Rome survived as long as it did because of it. The truth is, history isn't always kind, nor is it fair. Sometimes the price of power isn't just steep, it's merciless. The question we're left with is this: can we truly condemn a system that kept Rome alive for centuries, even if it cost a few emperors their lives? Power has a price. In Rome, that price was paid in blood, over and over again. But let's not kid ourselves. Some of those deaths might have been the best thing that could have happened to the empire. It's cruel, it's controversial, but it's history. So, what do you think? Were these assassinations tragedies or necessary evils? Let me know in the comments. For more tales of ambition, betrayal, and the steep cost of power, like this video and subscribe. And next time on The Price of Power, we'll explore another ruler whose fall changed history. Who will it be? You'll have to wait and see.